There was a lot of freedom in the way they brought us up.
Okay.
So, celebrating art, for example, they let us draw on the walls. We also had nature very close to us. So, going hiking, swimming, getting dirty, messy, it was all a part of the learning. Eventually, I moved on to Bangalore and then I came back to Goa. In fact, started my own brand. It's called Ami Goa, and we work with the local women communities to create art that tells a story about Goa's culture. And then eventually got consumed into art so much that I now lead the Museum of Goa.
What is it that led you to opening the Children's Art Studio?
First, I love children. I think, and I love to see them create. I love to see them think. I love to see them, just be themselves.
But I still feel Sharda, schools are getting it wrong when it comes to teaching creativity.
The schools, I feel, sometimes often focus on the outcome more than the process.
One lesson that you've learned from your father?
Not stress. I think one of my latest projects has been something called the phytoplankton world. Many of us don't know that the oxygen we breathe, actually half of it comes from because
I didn't know
of
that.
these creatures under the water. Most of us know of Goa, in the way Goa has been marketed to the world. But Goa has so much more to offer. How many of us knew that chilies actually came from Brazil into Goa and then spread to the rest of the country in India? Moke Sundays is actually going on for the last 9 years, 30 to 80 people coming together on a Sunday morning to actually just sit together and think and discuss,
Yes. Do you think art, becomes a language to children when words fall short?
Definitely, art is a great medium for expression.
Yes.
But I think having conversations with your child about what they draw, about what they, kind of have going on in their minds is very necessary. All people, especially children, use art to raise their voices, to share their stories. I think that would be good enough for me.
Welcome to Unscripted with Joyce. Here we have intentional and susegad conversations that flow straight from the heart. I'm Joyce, and this space is an invitation to slow down and to listen. My guest for today is someone whose work in the field of art is beyond admirable for someone so young. They say some journeys feel like they are woven with color, culture, and purpose. And our guest for today is exactly that. Her story begins in Goa, in a place full of life, rhythm, and heritage. Something you can still feel in everything she does today. She moved to Bangalore to study further, but very quickly her path became about people and not just professions. She spent 6 years working deeply on the ground, with children being the main focus. In tribal Udaipur as a Gandhi Fellow, and then across states like Punjab, Haryana, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra. Traveling, listening, and building. Setting up digital labs so children could step into a whole new world of information and opportunity. She came back to Goa, where she founded Ami, working with local women to create crafts that are not just beautiful, but deeply rooted in Goan culture, stories, and identity. Her journey took her to the Netherlands, where she studied Masters in Public Policy, and even after working there, she chose to return once again. This time, bringing together everything she had experienced: community, creativity, and culture. Today, as the COO and director of the Museum of Goa, a vibrant cultural space and one of Goa's most distinctive creative destinations, she is shaping experiences that bring together art, heritage, and contemporary expression for everyone who walks through its doors. Some people follow paths, some create impact, and some, like our guest today, carry a piece of where they come from into everything they build. And in doing so, they leave behind stories, spaces, and experiences that stay with you long after you've walked away. So please join me in welcoming the very talented, the very beautiful and youthful Sharda Kerkar. Sharda, welcome to Unscripted with Joyce. It's such a huge pleasure to have you on the studio with me today. And I'm so eager to listen to all that you have to say to us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me over.
So let's dive straight into your story, okay? I'm sure you have lots to tell us, but take us back to the childhood, in between, the busy professional that you are. Tell us all about Sharda in a nutshell.
Okay, so basically, I was born and brought up in Goa. I stayed very close by to a beach, so I learned swimming directly in the sea. That's still one of my most cherished memories as a child. With parents, one a doctor then, and one who is my mother being a biotechnologist. We were very close to science as a subject overall, but there was a lot of freedom in the way they brought us up.
Okay.
So celebrating art, for example, they let us draw on the walls.
Wow.
If we did something that was even a simple scribble, we were praised to say that, wow, look at that drawing. It's so beautiful. And it's
Awesome.
just that confidence, the appreciation, the encouragement of choosing and doing things that we enjoyed to doing as kids
Yes.
is something that we were brought up with. I think we also had nature very close to us. So going hiking, swimming, getting dirty, messy, it was all a part of the learning. Eventually, I studied in Dempe College in Goa, where I did my science. Then moved on to Bangalore in Christ University to do my bachelor's in sociology, political science, and economics. And then I worked for about 6 years in the development sector with a focus on education, women empowerment, and skill development. And then I came back to Goa. In fact, started my own brand. It's called Ami Goa, and we work with the local women communities to create art that tells a story about Goa's culture.
Okay.
Eventually, after COVID hit for a bit, I went to do my master's in public policy with a focus on culture, and then came back to Goa, worked there for a year actually, and then came back to Goa to start the Children's Art Studio, and then eventually got consumed into art so much that I now lead the Museum of Goa.
Wow, that's quite a story, Sharda. But you know what? I thought you were an artist. Okay. I don't know why I assumed that. And I'm sure you get this a lot. It's probably because you have such strong artists in your family. It could be the strong, creative forces that are there in your household. I don't know what it is, but yes, now I know your real story. But tell me a little bit about this journey of yours. How did it all happen? How did you look at art as a child, and how do you look at art today?
So I think, being in a family of artists, but also we had a lot of artists coming in. So just seeing the process, the creation, why they do what they do was also very interesting.
Yes.
But I think as a child, for me, art felt a lot more like, personal. It was aesthetic. But today, the way I look at art is very different. I think for me now, art is almost like a language of understanding life around you. It is a way to look at the world. It's an approach to life. I think, for example, if I look at any work at the museum, let's say Kalidas Mamal is a Goan artist. He talks about caste through his art. Their art becomes knowledge. In some works of, let's say, Shailesh Dabulkar, who's an artist who's done some work on mining, art becomes a form of resistance.
Yes.
To many other works in the museum, for me, art is an inspiration. So art almost now has slowly it's gone beyond just the process and the making, but to more, what is the meaning, what is the dialogue, what is the impact that art is bringing.
Yes.
That's where I'm at this point.
Wow, and that's so heartening to hear, Sharda. I think it's really awesome to see you work with children, not just in Goa, but you've done so much of work across India. What is it that led you to opening the Children's Art Studio? And, what does it mean to you really?
I think first, I love children. And I love to see them create. I love to see them think. I love to see them, just be themselves, and just the way the ideas come out of them. And
Yes.
just as beings, they're, I think, so curious and so beautiful that I've always wanted to be around children for myself,
Yes.
so that I feel happier in life. And I've been working with children for a very, very long time. And I always felt that the kind of exposure that I got to art happened because of the parents I had. I would say some of the schools that I went to as a child also definitely gave me a lot of exposure to the arts, but I think now when I reflect back, it was more from home. And that is the same kind of philosophy that I would like to take to a larger number of people, where the basis is just that you give child agency, you give child a space to let themselves be free and focus on the idea of imagination, on creativity and play, less of doing art, less of skill based art, but more of expression. And that is what made me start the Children's Art Studio, and today we're doing a very good job with so many children coming to us. Almost 10,000 government school children come every year and experience art with us.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's just so nice to hear something like this is in Goa. And, I want to talk about the Museum of Goa. It's also called Moog, and Moog translates to love in Konkani.
Yeah.
And, I've been to the space. It's got such a fun and vibrant vibe to it. And it's just not a museum. It's such a lovely learning space for not just children, but, people of all age groups. I want to ask you, how does learning take place artistically, and what does learning through art look like in reality?
So, the museum, like you said, it's not like a museum, and it isn't, because it's not a traditional museum where you have, a body of artifacts being displayed, but it is real contemporary art that has been created by artists to talk about Goa's future, Goa's history, Goa's past. And I think what it looks like when you come to a museum is, I think, first it brings a lot of inspiration. But I believe, like you said, in the context of learning, I think learning is not passive. It is very messy. It involves a lot of questioning. And I
like
think
that.
when children come to the museum, what you will see is basically them talking more than us telling them what is happening around. You'll see the children questioning us. You'll see the children sharing their own opinions. You'll see them creating. You'll see them getting messy. And I think that is the spirit that we kind of try to nurture through what the museum is. The museum is also a place, like we always say, it's not a repository of objects, but it's a laboratory of art, where we create, we innovate, we think differently. So what we want is, one, of course, for people to come and know Goa's culture and history through a different form, which is art, but also to get inspired, and go back home saying, wow, there was an artwork that was made with 150,000 plastic bottles collected from the beaches of Goa. There's artwork made with recycled tires. There's artwork made with hair. There's artwork made with old cigarette butts and tea bags, So it's also like for people to get inspired and go back thinking, learning something, but also going back to saying like, oh, I think I can also do art now.
Yes. And I think a lot of inspiration comes from all of these spaces, and if we can start off with little children, I think there's nothing like it. And just to add to that, I read this article on the Better India website. The article was written by Leila Bedari, and this she spoke about how her 5-year-old learned about art and Goa's heritage, how she learned so much in one afternoon than she did in so many years. And I think what really stayed with me is, Sharda, how you played a very important role in that child's life and in that child's experience. Would you like to unpack that day for me, if you remember?
I mean, I think it was one of the best days of my life. Like, I'm almost tearing up when I think of that day. It was, I think when you have children who are so curious, you feel like overwhelmed and so happy, just being with them.
True.
I think her child was is very curious, very interested, full of opinions, and versus me just going and telling her, just 5-6 stories, which I thought a child at 5 would understand. She had questions about everything. What is this material? Why is it this shape? What does this make her think? What it reminded her of? And I think that for me was, a pull factor where she was leading me more than I was taking her around the museum. So I enjoyed myself thoroughly that day, just to see how children think, what they ask, why they ask, and where it stems from was a major learning for me. And I forgot what I was meant to do that day, right? I mean, I have, as somebody who's leading the museum, I had a lot of things for that day to do. But, when she came and I walked her around, I said, forget this. Like, I would rather be here than anywhere else. It was really like such a beautiful day for me that I, in fact, messaged Leila the next day saying, oh my God, like was one of the best days of my life. And in fact, she told me, like, when she entered CAS, which is the Children's Art Studio, the child, she looked at it and she's like, oh my God, this was my dream.
Wow.
And I felt the same, because it was my dream to start a studio and for children to feel like it belonged to them. And when she is
so special.
And when the child felt like that, I was like, okay, I think I've achieved a very important thing in my life.
I felt that too, when I was reading it. It felt like a really well-written article, but more than that, I think it had a lot of emotion in it. And if every child in Goa were to spend just one day of the year at Moog, what do you think can change for them?
I think one of the important things for every child to take back is the fact that their opinions, their stories are valid. And I think what we often engage with and focus on beyond the knowledge and everything that you take back is for you to feel confident about yourself and about your opinions. So we really strive for every child to share what they have in mind and create a space that is safe for them to share freely without any judgment. So I think that every child getting out of the museum, if they spend even a day, would go back feeling good about themselves.
Yes. And that brings me to schools today. I know there's a lot changing in schools today. The way they look at art, it's no longer just that one art period and you're just drawing sunsets and, sunrises. It's so much more than that. But I still feel Sharda, schools are getting it wrong when it comes to teaching creativity. Why do you think this is happening, and why is art looked upon as just an extra and not an essential?
I think the reason why that I think often happens is because art is not measurable, or you don't see the effects of art immediately. And that is why it's often considered not the main essential thing to do. I think the entire human civilization is actually born in the womb of art. Art education is the foundation of our civilization. And I think that is a reality, that is a truth that we all must slowly start critically looking at to understand why. Why is every major artist of the world saying that, oh, I want to become a child again. They want to be free. They want to be able to express fearlessly like a child, sort of approaches the world. But I think in terms of schools, creativity is often looked at as a way to assess. Is she creative? Is she not creative? Are they creative? Are they not? Creativity is looked at as a talent, versus it being an approach. And everybody has the ability to be creative if you nurture creativity. And the schools, I feel, sometimes often focus on the outcome more than the process. So, I mean, when you tell a child, to draw a mango, it's not about getting the color of the mango right, the shape of it right, the texture of it right, but it's to basically just let them express what they feel a mango is. Sometimes it's shapeless, sometimes it can have hands, sometimes it can, not even look like what a mango otherwise looks like, but it's the process of engaging the child to think freely, to think creatively, versus really assessing it. And I think that is what often schools get wrong.
And Sharda, while you were talking, I thought of the greatest Pablo Picasso. He said that every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist when we grow up. That becomes a problem. But thank you so much for that perspective. I harp about life skills on camera, off camera. My work is all about building, teaching children build life skills and real life skills. And art, I feel, plays a very important role in building very crucial life skills like, critical thinking, empathy, confidence buildings. What's your take on this?
Absolutely. I think art has the power to inspire, to help you think differently, to critique something, to look at the
Yes.
world from multiple perspectives,
Yes.
and I think art plays a very important role in making us better people in life, to build that empathy within us, to become better human beings.
Yes.
I think art is a tool where, when we look at either a piece of work on the wall, or we listen to a song, or we read a book, all of that are expressions of art. And
Yeah.
think of yourself, because most people can maybe connect with it more from reading a book or listening to a song. You feel something, it makes you
Yes.
think, it makes you reflect, and you ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? Or what did I do this wrong? Or what
Yes.
do I want to be when I grow up? Or whatever, those really critical questions that we all want to ask ourselves about purpose, about why we belong to
Yes.
this planet. And I think art allows you to do that. Art
Yeah.
allows you for that reflections, and therefore eventually, understanding yourself and understanding the world around you.
Yes, that's very, very deep. That's really deep, Sharda. It's just so amazing. I look at you as someone so young and yet giving me this version of art. I think it's truly inspirational. But it's not fair to talk about Moog, or even rather possible to talk about Moog without acknowledging the vision behind it.
Yeah.
And that's your dear father, Mr. Subodh Kerkar. And now he's one of the names that is a very celebrated name in the Goan art spaces.
Yeah.
What was it, Sharda, growing up with a father who's such a strong creative force? Did it shape the way you look at art and also your personal journey?
Definitely. Of course, I would lie if I say no. But I think he, as a person, is an open book. He is somebody who does exactly what he wants to do. And I think he's been lucky to have my mother, who's supported him in that journey of his. Because I think when he started his journey as a doctor, he had his own hospital, he practiced medicine, and then one fine day decided that, okay, I don't want to be a doctor anymore, and I'm going to become an artist. And then you saw him sitting on the streets painting, whatever, a house, a tree, or whatever.
Wow.
And the world around him, which is my mother, the immediate family, were perhaps wondering what the hell is going on.
Yes,
And my
I'm
mother
sure.
perhaps is thinking, like, who did I marry?
Yes,
Like,
and how many people do that?
Yeah. So I think he's had a very sort of interesting journey for himself. And I
Yes.
think the life that he has lived has been that of an example, where we as children growing around him have also seen him take those risks,
Yes.
do things that he's loved doing, and which has then encouraged us also to do something that we loved to do.
Yes.
Right? So he doesn't always just say do what you love, but he's genuinely practicing it on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
And I see that every day, every single day, in everything that he does. He's very committed to the mission. He's very committed to the idea of taking art to the masses, to make it accessible. And I think that has really been ingrained in both of us, me and my brother. As people, we really value arts, and I think that is one of the most fundamental things that we have learned, that you otherwise never respect an artist much in a society like India. We see how much wealth of craft and art we have, but how many of us really value it, unless somebody else from perhaps the Western world comes and tells us that, oh, you should value this now.
Yes.
So I think inherently we've learned that as children, and I think he's played a very important role in shaping many ideas of art, but also about life in me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they say children see, children do. When you have examples in the form of parents who are doing it and living it on an everyday basis, I
Yeah.
think it becomes very natural for the children to follow that path. But yeah, I think it's very, very interesting. What is that one thing that most people don't know about your father, but you truly and deeply admire?
He's, like I said, he's an open book. There's nothing that he says that is a lie. Like he tells people everything, and sometimes I have to condemn, like, don't tell everybody everything. But I think maybe one thing that many people may not know, he makes reels, one reel every day. Every information, every idea that comes to him is out there. In fact, why it's taking me time to even think of, what it could be, is because if he gets an idea at 3:30 at night,
Yes.
he wakes up, he comes to my room and he says, Poppy, macho ut, like just 1 minute. It's like, I have this idea. And he'll tell me this idea because he may forget it.
Wow.
You know,
that's
or
such
he
a
gets
lovely
up
story.
and he writes it on a book.
Yes.
Or the other day he got up at 5 and he had this idea and he didn't know what to do about it. So he goes, he paints it, he calls me, he's like, see what I did? He calls my brother, he puts it on our family group. And so I think everything he has
Yes.
in his head, he loves to share and express it so much through his art, through his words, because he's also a
Yes.
great orator. He puts it all out there. I don't know, there's nothing he really kind of hides, I would say. And I don't know, maybe that he really loves eating cheese and crackers, maybe that's something that people may not see him do enough, or
Love it.
that like he has diabetes and that he uses, the fake sugar in his chai. But
Yes.
otherwise, I mean, I think he's so expressive. He's really out there. He's quite an
Yes.
open book. Yeah.
Yes. Now, coming back to Moog, Sharda, it's such a powerful vision. It's got such a powerful vision. How do you balance staying true to what your father has built and at the same time bring your own voice, your own values, direction, ideas to it?
Yeah. I think when I decided to truly commit myself to building the Museum of Goa, I was in two minds first, because, it was something that my father had started and built. It was like his third baby.
Yes.
And I wasn't sure whether he would also be ready for someone else to come and step in, even though I was his daughter.
Yes.
I think I came from a background already then with almost about 6 to 7 years of experience, and I had a certain vision of leading a certain institution. And I think my role started off by institutionalizing what the museum is, right?
Yes.
I think when he ran it, it was an artist who was doing everything. He was painting, he was also showcasing art, he was also trying to bring in artists, but it was not done in a systematic way because there was no management at all.
Yes.
So I think my role, in a way started with creating a management, a foundation, department, systematizing all the operations, streamlining all the operations, putting in processes to it. So I think for me, it was first to just build that structure on top of which all of these ideas, our mission, our vision could then really sail through.
Okay.
But I think both of us have enough communication with each other. So even if there is a disagreement to things, there is scope to, share and build it together. Or I
Yes.
just, win over most arguments.
Yes,
because
I'm
he's
sure
just
you
like, you do what you do.
You have a fair advantage there.
Yeah. But I think he's also then taken a step back from
Yes.
management and from doing building Moog in that sense, but because he's able to then focus on his own art and his art practice,
Yes.
which is something that he had to really juggle when he also had to, run Moog and do his art practice.
Yes. And, Sharda, there's one thing common between the two of us. We've worked with children, we continue to work with children, but I think most importantly, we love doing so.
Yeah.
Tell me some of your top favorite stories involving children. I really want to hear this out.
There are many of them,
Yes.
but I was just thinking of one. When we think of sort of imagination in general, there was a child who made something called the Cheecock.
Oh.
And we were doing this activity of imagining imaginary creatures.
Mhm.
We often believe that, if you can imagine something, it exists.
Yes.
And we really truly believe in that thought and idea, because I often feel that, let's say I'm in a place not so good, and unless I can't imagine myself to get out of it, I won't take the first step.
Yes.
So imagination for me becomes a very important skill to practice. So even if you're in the darkest of times, if you think of hope and if you're able to imagine hope, you will take that next step to come closer to light.
Yes.
And I think children, so imagination as an activity is something that we do. So one of the child had created this thing called Cheecock, where it was the body of a cheetah and the feathers of a peacock, but the face
Wow.
of an owl.
Ooh.
And it's really amazing the kind of characters that I've seen children build. And for me, sometimes even if the children are non-verbal, or even if they are children who don't like to share too much, it's just been through the work that they're able to express so much. There has
Yes.
been a a child who created a snake with the body of a mermaid and then the beak of a parrot. Yeah.
Okay.
I think those have been really interesting expressions that I've seen with children. But
Yes.
in terms of, I think, communication or stories that they've told me, again, so like they're all fake, right? They're all
Yes,
imaginary, but
yes.
telling it with such confidence that, yeah, I saw this creature called the peacock. He was there, you know, at the in my backyard doing this and that. And I'm like, I know you're lying. But in my head, I'm like, I want to believe this, you know?
Yes.
And those, just these imaginary storytelling times have been very fulfilling for me.
Yes. And was there any lesson you learned along the way with children?
Yeah, a lot. I think one of them, I think, is that they're very rooted in being empathetic. I think
Yes.
an example of that comes to my mind. I think I was giving a guided tour one day and we were just talking about things. And in the middle of this storytelling, this child was, I think, a little disturbed because her friend couldn't see me properly.
Okay.
So she was like screaming up and, you know, talking. She's like, ma'am, can I tell you something? Can I tell you? And then she really like fizzled out and then she said, you know, he can't see. And for me, like, these experiences also kind of teach me that, you know, in spite of what was being told and the ideas we were sharing, art creating, her priority was so rooted in empathy, right?
Yes.
That she wanted her friend to just be
Yes.
able to, you know, see me properly. And I had
Yes.
ignored that at that point, for example. So I feel like children have taught me empathy. Children have taught me to really approach the world fearlessly, take those risks. And I think most importantly, something that I need to really work on myself is humor. You know, they take life a little easy. They take
Yes.
life with a little bit of, you know, laughter.
Yes.
And that's something that I think I've forgotten. I take things so seriously now. I want to critically look at things. But sometimes when you're with children, you laugh at the silliest of things. And I feel like, like, why am I not like this?
You know, when you get into their world and into their shoes,
Yeah.
I think everything is just so light and everything is funny. And I think somewhere along the way, we lose that connect, you know.
Yeah.
But so nice to hear that from you. Now that we're talking about children, Sharda, I also want you to tell us about the wonderful workshops that you're curating for children. What are the activities you do for them and any in the pipeline in future that are very exciting?
So I think there are many things that we do, but I think one of my latest projects has been something called the Phytoplankton World, which is a glow-in-the-dark space that we've created. And we wanted to talk about this tiny microscopic creature called the phytoplankton that lives in the ocean. And we saw them under a microscope first as a team. And then we saw that they were so beautiful, full of patterns, that we decided to magnify them into large sculptures that are also glowing. And the idea is it's an experiential space where children get to move around the phytoplanktons and get to learn about what they do and how essential they are for the marine ecosystem and our life on this planet, because they produce 50% of the world's oxygen.
Wow.
And as people living so close to the ocean, many of us don't know that the oxygen we breathe, actually half of it comes from because
I didn't know
of
that.
these creatures under the water.
But that's amazing. And I saw that video, you know, and it's just so mesmerizing. I mean, God, how did you do that? I mean, how did you curate that whole event?
I think it was a team effort. We have some amazing educators on board, and we all dived into researching. We worked with the National Institute of Oceanography to basically understand what these creatures are about. And then went on to really doing art and creating sculptures and, you know, making an experience that would be also very educational for children, but also very visually like delightful. So I think that was our goal especially. But I think the other projects that we've done besides workshops that we do almost every weekend, there have been a lot of projects we've done with government school children. So recently we did a project where for Diwali, Narakasur is one of the largest effigies that is made in Goa. So we worked with children to use recycled cardboard to create these lovely, beautiful masks that they made. And we worked with almost about 200 to 300 children, and we made a huge exhibition of these masks. And they were so colorful, so beautiful. And in fact, because the Narakasur is a very scary creature, most children were like, I don't like him so much. So they made their masks very cute and non-intimidating. intimidating or non-scary, because they said they were afraid, so
Wow.
they didn't want to make others scared.
So everyone did one. Is
Everyone
it?
did one mask
Wow.
each. So we worked a lot with
Yes.
children. We also worked with the persons with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
We created a large project called the Godhidi Project
Yes.
in collaboration with the government.
Yes.
And we had 2,000 children across 30 government schools, all special schools. And each child got a chance to create a portrait of themselves or of something else using
Yes.
textile, waste textile.
Wow.
Then we stitched all these squares together into a large godhidi. So godhidi in
Yes.
Konkani means quilt.
Yes.
And so it
yes.
was this large quilt of joy, but a way for people to know what, to have a discussion on inclusion, to talk about how
Yes.
while we all are different and we live with our differences, we have to look at and be able to, really empathize with these differences and live with them
Absolutely.
in harmony. So those were ideas that
Yes,
we also
because
tried to-
we talk about inclusion in education, but inclusion in art is rarely spoken about. And when I saw that project during the Purple Fest, I think it was amazing. 2,000 children with
Yeah.
special needs. I mean, it's commendable, and it's just so meaningful. This whole project is so meaningful. I think, Shada, you need a big pat on your back. It
Thank
was
you.
something that is very, very inspiring, especially for someone like me, where I've worked in this space. I think it's completely and totally mind blowing.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Shada, I'm going to shift gears now and talk about my favorite topic, Goa. But there's a quote by the greatest Vincent van Gogh, that comes to my mind. And it goes this way: if one truly loves nature, one can see beauty everywhere. And I think this thought really encapsulates what Goa is so beautifully. We both feel for Goa. I want you to kind of unpack what true Goa really is, and not just what people think of it as, just beaches and tourist destination and party. What is the true essence of Goa?
I think Goa, like any other place, is layered, right? It is not something that is homogeneous.
Yes.
And I think what is important for us to understand is that you have to look at any place, and Goa, as a place that has multiple layers, multiple histories, multiple perspectives.
Yes.
So most of us know of Goa, in the way Goa has been marketed to the world. And like you just described it, it's
Yes.
full of, it's a space for tourist destination. There's casinos everywhere. There's parties that you can do. And Goa's version of the world is just so one directional. It's just this
Yes.
one story that everybody knows of. But Goa has so much more to offer. Like recently
Absolutely.
we've done, a lot of an exhibition called the Festivals of Goa.
Yes.
And we unpacked almost 40 different festivals that Goa has.
Wow.
I'll just name some, like
Yes,
Sheni
please.
Uzo,
Yes.
Toshechi Jatra,
Yes.
Perni Zagur, Keळ्यांचे Fest, Zuechi Jatra.
Yes.
Many of us don't even know that these Potekaranche festival.
Yes.
Not many of us know this festival exists. You know Goa as Carnival.
Yes.
That is the top festival that comes to your mind. And now perhaps Diwali, because Narkasurs have also kind of made a good entry. So, for example, one is to look at Goa through its festivals. The other is even historically, Goa's history is so interesting. How many of us knew that chilies actually came from Brazil into Goa and then spread to the rest of the country in India? Before the Portuguese came in, India did not eat chilies. India ate pepper.
Wow.
And who knows that Goa is the gateway for chilies? Remove chilies from your Indian cuisine and what is remaining,
Yes.
But not just chilies. There were so many other fruits and vegetables that have traveled from other places into Goa because of the colonial history that we have, that it is also so interesting. So you need to unpack Goa through all its layers,
Yes.
historically and culturally. And I think it's a very touchy topic now to discuss what has Goa become, what is
Yes.
going to become, who is a Goan, and the questions around identity. But I think these questions need to be answered because we all
Absolutely.
are seeking answers to this.
Yes.
But I think it has to be understood from a place of openness, where we have to
Yes.
sit together and say that we're all here to live together with all these differences. And Goa is a place which is also syncretic. You have Hindus, Christians, Muslims, everyone living together
Yes.
with differences, but in a certain harmony, in a certain negotiated space. And I think to understand Goa or any other place requires that amount of openness, discussion, and empathy at the end of the day to be able to really look at it in its true form.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head, when you say that there's so many layers to it. It can't be one directional. And I think all of us, whether we are Goans, we are non-Goans, and anybody who loves Goa, there is a certain responsibility towards Goa. And I think the festivals of Goa is so amazing in not just preserving the cultural heritage of Goa, but also the Goan identity and creating that whole, knowledge base for everybody to know there's more than just the carnival.
Yeah.
But I think it's commendable with programs like this. What Moog is doing is truly, truly commendable. And Sharda, now, can you tell me what is one of the most interesting festivals that you worked with?
So I think I'd like to talk about, within festivals, there's a lot of art and craft that takes place within Goan societies.
Yes.
For example, if you look at Durga Puja now, it's become such a hit tourist space where
Yes.
everybody wants to go for Durga Puja because of the pandals that they're making. And everybody from across India is trying to flock there to actually see what is this culture about.
Yes.
It's not essentially just for Durga Puja, but it's basically to see all the paraphernalia that happens around Durga Puja.
Yes.
That's exactly what happens during Diwali in Goa, where at the Narakasur time, it takes months and months for people to use metal, paper mache to build those giants. And I know how much effort that takes. There's another thing called the Matori. So during Ganesh Chaturthi, they build these, they put all the seasonal fruits and vegetables hanging above the Ganesh idol.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, this is very, very unique to Goa. In Maharashtra, they don't do this enough. So recently when I was researching about the festivals, I met this engineer and a police officer who are both Matorikars, people who make Matoris. And they actually create these giant Matoris on their ceiling using almost 250 to 300 different fruits, vegetables, and, edible, non-edible, poisonous plants
I've
that grow
seen
in the
so many
jungles.
of them, yes.
And they put it all up on the ceiling, but designed in a very beautiful way. So sometimes you
Yes.
Ganesh on top, a Hanuman, a
Wow.
woman, a bird, or anything like that. And we had these put and brought into the museum.
Okay.
And so when people walked in, they could actually sleep and actually look at
Wow.
the Matori sleeping on the floor. We currently also have a 22 feet Narakasur in the museum, which is
Okay.
also mechanical.
Wow.
And here, the idea for us was how can we also uplift the value associated with the crafts and art forms that happen during festivals in Goa.
Yes.
Because unless you don't see it in a gallery space or a museum, you're like, "Arey, this is always there on the street, what's the big deal?" But the moment you look at it in a different setting that actually values art, suddenly your perspective about that changes. Now you're looking at it as art and not just something that my grandmother used to do or my grandfather used to do or my uncles does, So I think like for us, that has been a very important aspect also to talk about Goa in its current living form, in its living art that we see today. So that was
I
one
think the
of my-
Festival of Goa is really is very enlightening because I've lived in Goa all my life, and there were so many festivals. When I read about it, I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Shada, was there any obscure or a small little festival that you think you featured in festivals of Goa that people don't know about?
Yeah, actually one of my favorites that I didn't know about, most people didn't know about, was something called the Toshanchi Jatra.
Okay.
Toshanchi Fest. Toshe
Yes.
means cucumber.
Correct.
And it's a festival where people actually offer a cucumber to Mother Mary's mother, basically
Okay.
Anne, and Saint Anne, and you actually offer these so that you get a baby, or so it's basically a phallic, it's
Okay.
looked at as like that. But everybody is walking into the church with cucumbers
Okay.
and just offering cucumbers.
And
So
where,
for-
which village does this
you
happen?
can also see close to Bambolim, a church
Okay.
next to Bambolim where you can see it.
Okay.
And it is so interesting because, imagine, like, in this big world, there's a little
Yes.
village in Goa which is using cucumbers as a holy offering to the
Wow.
deity, which I think is fabulous.
I think it's
there are
fabulous
all
too.
kinds of offerings that people make, but to have a cucumber, I think is very, very unique.
Yes, absolutely.
So this has been actually one of my festivals. There are many others that we were
Yes.
surprised with, but this
Yes.
is definitely
But that's
my favorite.
great. That's great. And this takes me to your installations once again, because this conversation is not complete without talking about these massive, immersive art installations. And I know that you've spoken about phytoplanktons, but I want to talk about it more. Will we see this in Goa anytime soon?
I definitely want to. We did it at a very small scale at the Goa Open Arts Festival in Panjim.
Okay.
But I would like to, we did it only in a very, very small form there. I'd like to do it soon, hopefully this year.
Oh, that's great. That's really, really great. And let's talk about something that's becoming really, really increasingly important in today's education system, and that is children using art to express themselves. Do you think art, becomes a language to children when words fall short? And what are your observations when it comes to children not being able to express themselves and how they use art to really express themselves?
Yeah. I think definitely art is a great medium for expression. Some children who, like I said earlier as well, who may not want to express through words, have used art to say many things. There have been a
Yes.
lot of scientists who've done, sort of an analysis of just art drawn by a particular child, and have kind of understood what they're feeling, why they're going through what they're going through, what are the
Yes.
dreams that they get, and sort of little bit of analysis have helped them also get into the inner world of the child. So I think every painting in that form, or any work of expression of art, is a way into their minds.
Yes.
There was a child who I remember who made this drawing with it in visually it looked like there was just black lines everywhere and some little bit of
Yes.
red color. So the parent comes up to me one day and says, see, Asharda, the child's just not, he doesn't have this talent. And I looked at the parent and I said, I've just had like a 5-minute long conversation with your child, and she very well explained to me that there's a man who's standing on top of the building and he wants to jump. Now, I don't know why the child is thinking of these things, but
Yes.
the child could see it. I couldn't, but the child helped me see it, and then the
Yes.
parent was surprised, saying, oh my god, like, what am I to do with this
Yes.
now?
Yes.
But I think having conversations with your child about what they draw, about what they kind of have going on in their minds, is very necessary in a
Absolutely.
world that is bombarded with so much of information, but also a lot of trauma that is taking place, with the war going on one side, with you don't know the kind of things that surface on a child. Maybe it's a fight that the parents have had, it's a bad day at school, it's you don't know what it is, right? And I think art is definitely one medium, but I think
Yes.
having that space to converse with your child and to be able to understand what they're going through becomes
Yeah.
super key.
And I think this is really the need of the hour for schools as well, because having experts hired, to understand art therapy, in my profession, when I worked as a counselor and as an educator for decades, art has really played, a very important role in helping me reach out to children.
Yeah.
A lot of these children, they can speak, but sometimes they don't have that voice. They don't find those words to express themselves.
Yeah.
And when I talk about children with special needs, it becomes it's art therapy is a game changer there.
Yeah.
And at the Aura World School, we are building a school where we want to use art as a medium.
Yeah.
And not just as a medium and use it as a subject, but I think what we really want to do is we want to integrate it and use it as an aid to help children, with emotional intelligence, with well-being, with inclusion, everything. And I think this really is the need of the hour.
Sure. Yeah, I
Yes.
agree with you. I think
Yes.
art definitely will play an important role in sort of also looking at ideas of, I don't know, like fear,
Yes.
underconfidence, just insecurities. Sometimes art becomes a very lovely tool to sort of bring that out, have those conversations around
Yes,
it.
very much. And even when it comes to emotion regulation, I
Yeah.
think art really not just allows you to kind of communicate or understand emotions, but I think regulation also can happen in the form of art.
Absolutely.
And I think each and every school should look at it, more intently and hire, experts so that this can be taken to the next level to aid a child.
Absolutely.
Because you're right when you say that children are really going through a lot today. There's so much of anxiety around so many things. There's so many pressures in today's world. So I think art can really play a very, very important role,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yes. And since we're talking about inclusion, Sharda, I think we've already spoken about the Godri project. It's such an interesting project, but I want you to shed some more light on this project, and what was your experience working with these children? 2000 is a really big number. How did you achieve this humongous job?
So I think this project would not have been possible without the teachers across and the facilitators across each of these 30 schools. We actually went through the teachers and then worked with the students. We actually planned it really well, I would say. We had a lot of experience much in advance of working with persons with disabilities. And so our team actually knew what kind of skill sets would work and what may not work.
Okay.
But I think the initial idea was to also break the idea that teachers had about the students, saying this they may not be able to do. So we wanted something that teachers would also feel comfortable with, but was also pushing the boundaries a little bit so that we could experiment with something new. I think in my experience of visiting all of these schools, there have been certain skills that have been mostly taught, which are how to paint a diya during Diwali, which they sell. Sometimes it's the Raksha Bandhan band.
Yes.
Sometimes it's these 5-6 things which are selling well, and they make agarbatti and stuff. But I think it is an underutilization, and I understand that government schools need a lot of resources, and especially
Yes.
working with students with such needs, sometimes you need one teacher per student, and it's very
Yes.
hard. It's very heavy resource. But the Godri project actually stemmed from that idea that we can do things differently. We can do new things together with them and help them also expand their skill sets a little bit. And I
Yeah.
think when we went into that, we took that leap. I think the teachers really understood what was happening, and they called us. They started telling us, oh my god, my child did this drawing, somebody did a Gandhi, somebody did themselves with 2 ponytails, somebody made a mustache, someone, and all with recycled textile. So
Wow.
they were really excited about it, and I think because they believed in the project with us, it was a
Yes.
success. And that's how we had almost 5 teachers in each of these schools working with the students and helping us bring out that art piece. And within about 3 months we managed to get 2000 pieces of it, and then worked with tailors, stitched it together, and
Wow.
created this large quilt.
Yes. And
Yeah.
what was the expression on their faces when they saw this
So-
whole massive installation?
So it was super. It was like so many faces looking at you. And actually, we had
Yes.
designed it in certain way, like we call it pixel art, where we use certain colors. So you could actually see 3 big faces, and each
Wow.
face was made with tiny, tiny faces. So it was
Wow.
beautiful. But they came in and they were like, oh, I did this, I did that. Some of
Yeah.
them who remembered. It was very hard to
Yes,
really
yes.
pinpoint which one was yours.
Yes.
But we did some games with them where they had to kind of find a particular face and go up to it. So it was
Wow.
very engaging. It was a really, I think, a very delightful moment to just see something that it was a first time. I think the government was
Yes.
also doing something so big at scale, and I'm really
Yes.
grateful to the, the commission, the Person with Disabilities Commission, for really supporting this program.
Yes.
I don't see much of government investing in art,
Yes.
but to believe in us to do something like this and to give us access to all those schools was also something that's very commendable for the commission as a whole.
Truly, and so
Yeah.
meaningful, so very meaningful.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to Moog, and my favorite feature there is the Moog Sundays, the workshops that have been curated, with varied topics ranging from feminism to bird watching to climate change to book discussions. I think it's amazing. And you spoke about, your dad making art accessible. I think this is knowledge and quality knowledge, and making it accessible to the locals, to everybody around. I think it's praiseworthy. It's really praiseworthy. How did this idea came into being?
I think it's interesting because, Moog Sundays is basically a platform where we invite people with different experience and expertise to come and share their ideas on stage. And we've been doing this for the last 9 years, non-stop, every Sunday without fail. And it's a program that's free for all. It's a public access, anybody can come and listen, but it stems from the idea of building a community that thinks together, that critiques together, that fights, that debates, right? Where are the spaces like this in a country like this where you can actually have a debate, you can actually argue, but meaningfully? And I think Moog Sundays is that space. For the last 3.5 years, it's been curated completely by Nilankur Das, who's our curator currently for Moog Sundays. And he's been doing a phenomenal job at the way he chooses people. So it's a lot, I think, rooted in social justice. There's a lot on environmental justice. There's a lot on what is culture, what is identity, what is art, what is conservation mean, what are the rivers in Goa doing, what are the trees in Goa saying. So it's really bringing everybody, not just people, but the planet, together to think about the future for Goa, but also about the world. Goa is only a tiny window to look into the larger world, and I think Moog Sundays does that. And I'm also very proud to say that I would have never imagined that something that people look at as, oh, just a lecture, is actually going on for the last 9 years, every single day, 30 to 80 people coming together on a Sunday morning to actually just sit together and think and discuss, So
I truly feel this is very commendable, and I think it's Moog's way of giving back to Goa.
Yeah.
I think it's really meaningful.
Yeah, I think art in end of the day is a reflection of your times, right?
Yes.
The meaning of contemporary art is art that talks about the times, the times of today. And I think Moog Sundays does exactly that. It's a platform to talk about what's happening today.
Yeah, true. And that brings me to a very important question about how people have certain concerns about looking at art. And one of the biggest concerns they have is the sustainability part of it.
Yeah.
How are you able to be, financially sustainable at Moog?
So the Museum of Goa is a business where our revenue stream is essentially the ticketing, right? So every person who comes in buys a ticket, and that has been our revenue model. The second has been about art sales, of course, but we also do a lot of workshops. We also have a cafe. We also have a store. We also have a children's art studio that are all adding to making Moog a sustainable space.
Yes.
It's a venue which is, trying to look at art as a means to learning about the world, and we've built a business model around that. And I think we took about 5 years to actually break even, and now luckily we've been doing a good job at sustaining the business. Your question from a more artist perspective, I think it's still very, very hard for artists to make money just selling their art. I think there are very few handful of artists in the country who are only doing art and making their money.
Yes.
If you look at most of the artists in Goa, though they call themselves artists first, most of them have a job that they fall back to that sustains their art practice for them, actually.
Yeah.
And it is only purely for the love of creativity and art that they are keeping that job and still juggling their art practice,
Yes.
So I think I don't think that art is a very easy field to leap into. Most art markets in the country are very tough to get into. I would say that they're very intimidating spaces as well. So not everybody has the networks to actually break through those spaces and actually showcase their work. And that's why sometimes you need more democratic, more accessible avenues for people to show their work and actually just get the confidence that, yes, this is art. And, my art will be viewed, my art will be bought. But
yes.
it is.
But I'm also going to talk about the youth today who are shying away. Some of them have real talent, but like you said, they need another job to sustain the art.
Yeah.
What are some of the myths you'd like to debunk when it comes to art as a career?
I think, like I said, art is not an easy um, space to break into. Um, I think art also, since it's so accessible as a medium, like tomorrow you can pick up a brush and go and start painting, right?
Yes.
It does not, you don't need to have a degree like you need in, let's say, medicine to become an artist, right?
Yeah.
Which is the beauty of it. But
Mm.
also that there are so many artists coming out of colleges today that the available spaces for them to showcase their work are limited.
Yes.
So there is, I think that there's a huge gap there. So
Mhm.
there is a major supply of artists, but on the other side there are not enough spaces that can nurture these artists and build a
Yes.
career for themselves. Therefore, a lot of artists have to on their own build their practice independently. They have to learn to market themselves, they have to learn to push themselves and pitch themselves to a world, which is not something that every artist can do.
Yes.
And therefore, that's when you have galleries, you have museums, and you have all of these mediators, in a
Mhm.
way, who come between the artist and the final consumer to actually bring them closer.
Yes.
But I think that sector needs to develop better. That sector needs to grow, not the way it's really growing in India right now, I would say, in terms of like the kind of values it holds. It needs to open up a little bit more. It needs to become, like I said, more democratic in its way of operating, for the art as a sector entirely to really thrive.
Yes. And what are some of the diverse career paths that, these youth can go into? I want you to give them a word of advice in terms of if there's somebody who's really looking at art as a career,
Yeah.
what would you say to them?
I think one is firstly be very open about the way you understand art. I think there's so much of visual information that we get that sometimes we get stuck on that this is art. But I think opening yourself to not just visual arts but to all forms of art. If you're an
Yes.
artist, a visual artist, you should be able to dialogue with a musician, and music should be able to dialogue with dance, and dance should be able to dialogue with literature. So I think knowing the arts as a whole becomes very important
Yes.
for any artist. The second, I think, is art. In terms of creativity, has a lot of avenues. I mean, you have professional, graphic design as a way to go about it. There's interior design, there's architecture, there's, design as a space. So I think that way there are multiple opportunities to, use your art and creativity for something that's more functional, something that's more, in terms of professional services. So that those sectors are really growing big. I mean, today, look at the digital sector, with
Yes.
videography and photography. These are areas that are really booming. And I
Absolutely.
think they're also very accessible to start off with. Of course, there's a certain monetary need to begin, but I think they're still much more accessible than many other professions to tap into.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to your own personal journey, Sharda, tell me, there were so many accolades. I'm sure you've done such brilliant work, curation. There's could have been so much of success and fame. But were there moments of doubt as well? Were there moments where you felt this is not enough? Were there moments of failure? And how did you navigate through all of those emotions?
I think, of course, I think everybody has moments of doubts, moments of failure. Having a father who's achieved so much in life, I felt scared. I
Yes.
mean, will I be able to fulfill that expectation? So you have doubts coming from there. Sometimes, there's an expectation that if your father's an artist, you'll also be an artist. So where is your work? Why are you not creating? So there are the questions that society puts to you. There have been failures. I started a business when I was in a social enterprise when I was in Rajasthan, and where I worked again with tribal women to create crafts, and that failed miserably. But there were learnings from all of these spaces,
Yes.
which kind of helped me, take the right path, build certain skills to then, take the next step in life. So I think definitely there have been a lot of moments like that, my low points, but which have, given me a chance to reflect on what next to do.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, finally, if you were to redesign the education system and go out to include art, to integrate art in some form, what are the changes you would first do?
I think, like we discussed before, I think that, art at the end of the day has to be looked at not as a skill, but as an approach.
Yes.
So I think, how does one build value for the arts in the educational system is something that I would, tap into first.
Yes.
I don't have concrete thoughts on what exact changes I would like to bring in, but beyond having arts as just class once a week, maybe definitely have it on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
But also, how do you integrate art with other subjects?
Yes.
Art is not just an end in itself, but it's also a means to learn a story or learn an
Yes.
idea. So you can use arts to teach mathematics, you can use arts to teach science, and I think art can also be used as a tool for communication.
Yes.
So I think that's another way to kind of integrate art, but also to expose students to the art of the world. So art education per se as a subject is not just in the making, but also diving into who are the artists that have created this works,
Yes.
that we all cherish. So most of us don't know, of the artists. The 5-6 names that come to us is, Pablo Picasso, we have Van Gogh, like you
Yes,
said, you have
yes.
Frida Kahlo. But beyond those three
Yes.
names, we don't know any artist,
Yes, there's so many
But
there.
the same, my father keeps saying this, that, in Bollywood, you'll know Amitabh Bachchan, you'll know Shah Rukh Khan. But in the art world in India, give me 10 names, nobody knows.
Yes.
We've had very, very important artists in the country. We have like Subodh Gupta, we have Atul Dodia, we've had, F.N. Souza, who's actually born and brought up in Saligaon, who made
Yes.
immense fame for the world. Nobody knows him. There's
Yes.
Gaitonde, nobody knows him. So there is a gap in knowing artists, their work,
Yes.
their life. And I think that as a subject has to be integrated within the system.
Wow, Sharda, thank you for that. And finally, what legacy would you like to leave in terms of your work for the next generation?
So I don't fully look at legacy as something monumental. But I think if I have to, leave something behind, I think it's the spirit with which we as a museum of Goa, let's say, really brings in for the people. We look at building a community that thinks together, and that's the spirit that I want people to take back, like leave behind as a person. Art has often been looked at as a very intimidating space. Oh, I don't understand this is not for me, I'm not a good artist, I can't do this, I can't do that, it's all for elite people walking in a room with wine glass around them. And if I can break that cultural idea and, make people understand that no, art is for everybody. Art is a universal language of mankind, and everybody has the right and the power to actually understand it, consume it, and feel it. And I think if I can just change that, and if all people, especially children, look at, use art to raise their voices, to share their stories, I think that would be good enough.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much for that. That takes me to the last section of the podcast. This is the very first time I'm doing this on Unscripted with
Okay.
Joyce. I thought it would be fun to start off with you, Sharda.
Sure.
It's called the rapid fire round.
Oh my God, never done
Okay,
that
you
before.
don't know any of these questions, of course, but there's just 2 rules to this.
Okay.
You have to be spontaneous and you have to be honest.
Sure,
Okay.
I'll try my
And,
best.
and don't think too much. You can think, but don't think too much. Give me answers. Tell me what is the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Okay.
So are you ready?
Sure.
Let's do
I'm
this.
not.
Yes. Okay. One word to describe children's art studio.
Play.
Okay. Museums, are they serious or playful in your view?
Playful.
MF Hussain or a local Goan artist, your choice.
Tough, but local Goan artist.
Name one.
Kalidas Mamal.
Okay. One artwork or an art installation every child must see.
The Carpet of Joy. It's built with 150,000 plastic bottles.
Wow. One artwork or art installation that changed your life.
I really can immediately think of Kalidas's work again. It's something on caste in Goa, and how that as a subject is not often talked about, but it talks about how the caste system trickled into Christianity during the Portuguese rule. And that is an area that I was not aware of as much, and that really opened up my eyes to something new.
Wow. Children touching artworks, yes or no?
With care.
Better artist, Subodh Kerkar or Siddharth Kerkar?
Siddharth Kirkar.
Art curation, is it about storytelling or editing?
Storytelling.
Your favorite artist?
Many, but I would say Ai Weiwei.
And finally, your thoughts on Unscripted with Joyce.
I think it was wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a very long conversation, but also so
Yes.
reflective for me. So
Yes.
thank you so much for your patience and interest and all your questions.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much, Sharda, for being so raw, so unfiltered, so unscripted. I really had an amazing time with you. I think this was really fun, but more than fun, I think it was so truly inspirational and informative for me. I think there's so many things that I've learned today, not just the festivals of India, but about the phytoplanktons and so many things that I've learned today. And I'm sure the audience is going to learn so much from from this podcast. So thank you very much for your time. It was
Thank
an
you.
absolute
Thank
pleasure
you. It
to
was a
have you on Unscripted with Joyce. And to everyone listening in today, maybe it's time to not just look at art, but to experience it. Today's conversation with Sharda had so many layers to it. There's so much we learned from what she shared with us today. If there was anything that stayed with you, talk about it, share it with your family and friends, and let's start a conversation around it. If you've enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit subscribe and like, and please continue to follow me on Instagram for more intentional and Susegado conversations. Until next time, stay grounded, stay focused, stay unscripted, and stay very creative.